Japan. Home to a rich history of culture, spectacular scenery, an incredible food scene, and just about everything else. Japan has been right at the top of places I've wanted to visit for as long as I can remember. And so, I wanted to share my experience on how we visited 8 different iconic Japanese cities and explored everything from the bustling streets of Shinjuku to the shrines of Kyoto, all in just 2 weeks. And along the way, I'm going to share my tips on how I've done it, what I've learned, and what I'd avoid to help you plan your own dream bucket list trip. And so, after a long flight and a quick detour to the Pokemon vending machine, join me and my brother as we spend 14 days in the land of the rising sun. Good morning from Tokyo! Woohoo! Okay, well this was my idea, as you can tell. But we are currently in a park looking for a Pokemon manhole cover. And then we are going to get some fried sandwiches, and yeah, we haven't really slept, but we're good to go. We've kind of slept. We're feeling good. We've dropped off the luggage and we're good to go. We decided to go ahead and try the social media famous fried sandwich. In my opinion, although they were good, I'm not sure they lived up to the hype or the 25-minute queue. But after a quick look around Sakoji Market, they did provide enough fuel to visit one of Tokyo's most iconic landmarks, and that is, of course, the 12-story Uniqlo store in Ginza. This is one of 801 Uniqlo stores in Japan, but their flagship location is definitely the most iconic, and the prices for many items were half that of the UK, so it's worth checking out while you're here. And then, from one iconic store to the next, we arrived at the first of many Pokemon centres for this trip. The Tokyo DX location is special as it's one of only 2 in Japan to have a Pokemon cafe, and you already know that we got tickets to that too, if nothing else for the exclusive merch available at the cafe. These tickets were probably some of the most difficult ones I've ever tried to get, so I'll leave a link below to some useful booking tips we used to secure our spot. I think it would be fair to say though that there was slightly more emphasis on the atmosphere and the dancing Pikachu than there was on the flavour of the food, so maybe don't come here too hungry. We then headed to Tokyo Skytree, where we grabbed a long-awaited first dinner before heading to Asakusa and Sensoji Temple to discover what fortunes might await us for this trip. A good fortune. First day in Japan, how you found it?
Been tiring, to be honest. A lot of stuff. Obviously didn't really get much sleep on the plane, neither of us did. But yeah, well planned.
But otherwise good. Well planned. Well planned is the most important.
Yeah, really good.
Looking forward to tomorrow?
Always looking forward to tomorrow.
Bring it. But before we dive in and see whether we really were as lucky as the fortune said, I wanted to give you an insight into what this trip looks like and where we are going. As you've seen, we landed in Tokyo at Haneda Airport and spent a few days exploring the city. We then take a day trip down to the seaside town of Kamakura before spending the evening in Yokohama Chinatown. By day 4, we are heading out of Tokyo and taking the Shinkansen to Kanazawa, aptly named the City of Gold. From there we take a bus to the farming village of Shirakawago, nestled at the base of Mount Hakusan, before heading down to the old town of Takayama, a city famed for its beautifully preserved old town full of townhouses and charming alleyways. We move on then to spend 3 nights in a renovated matcha townhouse in Kyoto, ready to explore some of the most famous shrines and temples in all of Japan. After which we take a day trip to the ancient capital of Japan, Nara, famous for its parks and deer, before heading directly into the bright lights of Dotonbori and the rest of Osaka. Here we spend a few days exploring the kitchen of Japan and spent a night experiencing a Japanese quintessential, a capsule hotel, Finally, we take a Shinkansen back over to Tokyo to see what we missed before and get stuck into the lively areas of Shinjuku and Shibuya before waving goodbye to Japan as we head back to the UK. This trip took place in November 2024, mainly because we really wanted to see the autumn colours that Japan had to offer and were sold on the mild temperature and predictable weather conditions. Finally, I thought I'd give a quick mention to the Wanderlog app, which I used extensively when planning this trip and pulling the itinerary together and sharing it with family and friends. And with all that said, let's get into day 2. If you've ever looked up the Ghibli Museum, you'll see it described as whimsical and absolutely perfect. If you've ever tried to book tickets to it from abroad, however, you'll be surprised how unwhimsical waking up at 2 AM in the morning is to be filled with the absolute dread of being put 3000th in the queue. Nevertheless, the gods of good fortune had indeed shone down upon us, and we started our first full day in Tokyo on the far west side of the city. The museum itself is not particularly large, but well worth a visit, even speaking as someone who has only watched a handful of Ghibli animations. Unfortunately, they don't allow videos or photography inside the building, so I can't show you what it looked like, but I kind of think this makes it even more special and means its contents is reserved for those who go. A quick train ride later, and we were in the small and quiet Otoguru Park, a well-maintained little zen garden that, although not the largest or most impressive park we would visit, was certainly one of the quietest and most relaxing. And we even got a cameo with a local resident. Following the train line east back to the centre of Tokyo, we couldn't resist the stop off at Nakano Broadway. I wouldn't class this as a must-visit place. I think it's overshadowed by Akihabara Electric Town and Nipponbashi in Osaka that we would visit later in the trip, but it was where we came across what would prove to be one of the most expensive pastimes of the entire visit, the gashapon. The same one. Now back in Ueno, we embarked upon our second but not final themed character cafe. It's at this point where you may be thinking that the Sanrio Garden Cafe is an interesting dining option for 2 grown men. And whilst I can't disagree with you, I'd like to say it was well worth it. However, clearly not having had enough of the Sanrio energy, we decided to wrap up the evening in Akihabara Electric Town, an area famed for its anime and gaming connections. The name Akihabara comes from Akiba, a fire-controlling deity of a firefighting shrine that was built after the area was destroyed by a fire in 1869. However, the area really took shape post-World War II, where it became a major shopping centre for household electric goods, and then, as all great areas do, branched out into anime maid cafes to really capture the attention of the world. For us, however, it would have been one cafe too many in a day, so we stuck to browsing the many various shops and enjoying the neon lights before finishing the night with a Magikarp taiyaki and of course the obligatory stop at a konbini. Now, like all Brits, we couldn't stay away from the coast for long, and day 3 saw us sit down to Kamakura for a day trip to enjoy the temples, shrines, and oh yeah, the curry pan. This is basically a fried bread filled with curry sauce and cheese, and that was about all the convincing we needed to stop and try some. And what did I think of it?
Well, it's really alright, to be fair.
Wow, absolutely poetic. It's not all about the curry bread though. Kamakura is one of the ancient capitals of Japan, and as such has some amazing shrines and places of worship to visit. In fact, some refer to Kamakura as the Kyoto of the East, and it's easy to see why. One of the places you should definitely visit is the Hokuhoji Temple, with a mini bamboo grove and a tea house offering matcha to guests who sit down and look out and enjoy the scenery. Whilst much smaller than the famous Arashiyama bamboo forest in Kyoto, I found it to be much more peaceful and enjoyable to spend an hour here. great way to access a lot of the shrines on the west side of the city is to take the ever popular Enoshima Electric Railway, which is an activity in itself, famous now after its depiction in the Slam Dunk manga and anime series. Be warned though, this does get busy during the day, even off season, so be ready for people to ruin your shop. The final place you need to see in Kamakura is of course the Daibutsu, the second largest bronze Buddha statue in all of Japan. Something that, despite my hard work, doesn't look nearly as impressive on film as it does in real life, inspiring a real sense of awe standing at the base of it. It also gave an opportunity to give a valuable gift to someone who recently passed their driving test, and a chance to give a super helpful wrap up of the day.
Hey guys, we're still in Japan. Behind us, as you can see, the Daibutsu, big temple day. All of them were very nice. Had some candy grapes, some
Candy strawberries?
candy strawberries, big grapes. Yeah, anything else to add?
No, we don't know what we're doing this evening. Might be going to some Chinatown, but we'll see how we feel. Some Chinatown did in fact turn out to be one of the largest Chinatowns in the world. Yokohama is home to a number of intricate and vibrant Chinese temples, but given how much walking we'd done all day, what we were really searching for was the food. None of it lasted long enough to be videoed, however, so you'll just have to take my word for it. It was 100% worth the stop off. And with that, we concluded day 3 of our trip to Japan. On the morning of day 4, it was time to jump aboard the Shinkansen and head west to the capital of Ishikawa Prefecture, Kanazawa. You'll notice that during this trip, we only ever really utilised public transport and walking. A lot of walking. Between that and Japan's impressive network of buses, trains and metros across their cities, getting around is both efficient and cost effective. If there's any questions around booking tickets, please let me know below. As we stepped out of the station, a performance in the square caught our attention, and we caught the end of a brave warrior slaying a dragon. The significance of this I'm not sure about, but the crowd certainly loved it. And after another quick stop at yet another Pokemon Center, lunch could wait no longer, and we quickly headed for Omicho Market. I'm not sure if it's just because I was starving or whether it was actually really good, but I have to say this was probably my favourite market during the whole trip. It gave us a really good opportunity to try a bunch of food, including the Hidawagyu sushi that was really delicious, as well as our first chance for unagi, the flavour of which really had Matthew thinking for a while. It was then off to Higashi-Chai district, which is home to the buildings and tea houses that really make this area so special. It was here that Kanazawa really lived up to its name as the City of Gold. The gold leaf production in this area dates back to the 16th century and now accounts for 99% of the production in Japan. And so, why not add it to just about everything, including the ice creams? It tastes exactly the same as any normal ice cream. Oh,
Yeah.
no, the mix. That's actually really good. The gold doesn't add anything, but alcohol.
Oishii.
In the evening, it was then time to head to Genroku-en, considered to be one of the 3 best gardens in Japan. Having not seen the other 2 at all, I would have to say that this one would definitely be number 1 on my list. It was amazing how beautifully designed the garden is to look so incredible in every season, and coming in the evening and getting to see the lanterns at dusk made it all the more perfect. Oh, and what better way to finish a day in Kanazawa if not with sushi covered in gold leaf. The morning of day 5 broke, and that could only mean one thing. It was time to leave Kanazawa already, but not before enjoying Mr. Donut's Pokemon collaboration. This trip moves at quite a pace at times in order to see as much of central Japan as possible, but I really want to stress that travel should be done in a way that suits you. Everyone has their own individual highlights, and we've all seen the videos of the must-visit places, the Shibuya Sky View, the animal cafes and so on. But the truth is, the most special things about being in Japan is just, being in Japan. And the thing that I miss the most having come back is just the people and the sounds and the feelings you get when being there. The sort of calmness and happiness I felt in only a few other places in the world. So if you watch videos like this and you think that's too much or I'm not sure that's for me, don't do it. Just allow yourself to enjoy your trips how you want to enjoy them. With all that being said, for us it was time to jump aboard a bus and head south to the mountain village of Shirakawago. Declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1995, Shirakawago can easily be identified by their traditional farmhouses with straw roofs, designed to withstand cold weather and heavy snow that the region experiences in winter. In the autumn, however, the weather is much warmer and you can enjoy the leaf fall in just a t-shirt or a thin jacket. The other thing you can enjoy here is the famous House of Pudding that, as the name might suggest, serves mini pots of Japanese pudding in a variety of flavours.
Is it delightful? Right.
Pudding now successfully devoured, you can take a short walk up to the observation deck where you can see over the entire village, and it's a fantastic place to get photos and videos. As the area isn't particularly large, you don't need to dedicate an awful lot of time here. We spent about 5 hours walking around and probably had a bit too much time. But before long we were catching the bus over to our next stop in Takayama, where we were wonderfully greeted at our accommodation in the Machi Hotel. I haven't spent much time talking about the accommodation on this trip, but this hotel was so friendly and great that I felt I just had to. In fact, it was so nice we spent the entire evening taking advantage of their private onsen and generally relaxing in our room, until it suddenly started raining, and that of course meant going outside, because there's nothing more aesthetic than an empty street in the rain at night in Takayama. By morning time, we awoke to another clear and fantastic day, and what better way to celebrate than by drinking sake at 9 AM in the morning. And by drinking sake, I mean sipping one shot just so that I could keep the little cup. However, something that we couldn't have just one of was the Hidu Wagyu beef skewers. This wasn't the first time we'd had them on the trip, but I can say with a high degree of confidence that both the ones we had in Takayama were by far the best beef I've ever eaten, and started at just 600 yen for a skewer. Still, it wasn't all about the beef, and we had one more destination to visit here, the Showa Museum. Dedicated to retro-style memorabilia, the museum is set out as a street you can walk through with different rooms off to the side. One such room included hundreds of retro games, some of which you could play, a fact that of course transpired into a number of tense games of Mario Kart.
This is the one, this is Mario's.
Now at the halfway point through the trip, here's a look at what we still have coming up in some of Japan's most renowned cities, Kyoto, Osaka, and then back to Tokyo. So, from the tracks of Super Mario Circuit to the tracks of the Shinkansen, it was back aboard Japan's much-loved bullet train, heading to another one of its ancient capitals, Kyoto. The soul of Japan is home to a number of important and iconic shrines and temples that puts it high up on people's list when they come here. This means that early mornings or late nights give you a real head start on the crowds. And that's exactly how we started day 7, waking up early and heading to my favourite temple in Japan, Kiyomizu-dera. Originally founded in 780 AD, it is now one of the most famous Buddhist temples in the world. Once you climb up and have a look from the top, it's easy to see why. After such an early start, it was only fair we were rewarded with some of the best views in Japan. And then, what better way to celebrate that than with a large coin pancake filled with cheese.
That was a cheesier shot than I was expecting, to be fair. But good, but good.
It was then on to the bustling city centre to let Japan's tax-free shopping take full advantage of 2 English tourists. Then, after an evening omakase which I was unable to film, we stepped back inside our renovated matcha townhouse ready for our futons. This townhouse was a really fantastic way to really feel a part of the city while staying there, and I would highly recommend doing it at least once for anyone coming to Japan. Wallet drained but energy high, we took another early morning to the famous Arashiyama bamboo forest. Famous of course for being as busy and touristy as it was breathtaking. Getting here prior to 6 AM is ideal if you really want to avoid as many other people as possible, but deciding to prioritise an extra hour's sleep, we arrived at a much more respectable 7:15, and whilst we didn't exactly have the place to ourselves, we certainly avoided much of the crowds that started really pouring in after 8. The forest itself is absolutely gorgeous and incredible to walk around, but has now become so popular that if you visit later on in the day, it quickly starts to lose a lot of the calm and tranquil that you've probably come to see. Although many people just come for the bamboo forest, walking out the other side gives you stunning views over the Katsura River, crossing which gives you access to 2 important things. 1, my favourite poke lid in all of Japan, and 2, the Arashiyama Monkey Park. For me, it's a coin toss as to what's more important, but I'll let you check out the Monkey Park and be the judge.
So, we're currently hiking up to the Monkey Park. We are trying to be big, we are far quicker than everyone else. It's quite the trek. It says 20 minutes, I think we're doing about 5. So it's quite a long way down. Look at everyone else. It's not even a match. Easiest move in my life.
Too easy.
Yeah.
After a fairly brisk walk to the top, we're greeted by groups of Japanese macaques. And by greeted, I mean they rarely care about your existence unless you're inside the human cage, feeding them on the outside, something that you should absolutely do given the chance. However, with plenty of sights and not much time, we hopped aboard a train to perhaps one of the most extravagant temples yet, the Gold Leaf Pavilion at Kinkaju Temple. When you first arrive and look out across the pond, it's easy to see why this is one of the most photographed locations in the country. Set against the backdrop of trees, you follow the path around the back of the temple, giving you time to see it and enjoy it from all angles. The rest of the day was mainly spent walking around Nishiki Market and the surrounding shops, waiting for nightfall and for the crowds to disband, giving us free rein to the torii gates of Fushimi Inari. Now, despite having not been in the day, I feel 100% qualified to say that this is best enjoyed at night. Away from the crowds of people, you almost get this eerie feeling walking through the thousands of gates, with the path illuminated by small lanterns to the side, casting long shadows across the trail to the summit. Until Matthew took over the vlog.
What's up guys, welcome back to another one of our vlogs. Today we're here at
Fushimi Inari.
This shrine has the most torii gates anywhere in Japan. I believe it's over 10,000 torii gates. So what we're looking at currently, it is insane. Oh God.
Really don't think there's anything I can add to that one. But yeah, we are currently in Fushimi Inari at night. That's great timing. That's fantastic timing. Well, there wasn't really anyone else here, but there you go.
Alas, Fushimi Inari was indeed our last outing in Kyoto, and by day 9 it was time to wave goodbye to our matcha townhouse and take a trip to Nara, and more specifically Nara Park. If you're travelling between Kyoto and Osaka, then stopping off at Nara is a great way to spend the day.
particularly if you like deer. In fact, if you don't like deer, Nara Park is probably one to stay well clear of. As a deer enjoyer myself, much of the rest of our change was spent buying and then quickly giving away crackers to the hungry residents of the park. And once we were out of cash, we made our way to the Great Buddha Hall.
Of all the Buddha halls, where does it rank for you?
It's top, actually top.
But number one.
Yeah, because it's actually so much bigger than it seems on camera.
Okay. That's great.
I actually don't know if I can explain how massive that is. Like, it is.
It's like a big Buddha hall.
It's enormous. Unfortunately, neither our eloquent descriptions nor the mediocre camera work quite capture how impressive this building really is. Inside are a number of monuments and shrines, the most impressive of which is of course the largest bronze Buddha statue in all of Japan. To put the size into perspective, the nostrils of the statue are large enough that an adult human might be able to squeeze through. And if you are wondering if that adult human could be you, you can simply walk around the back and try yourself by attempting to crawl through a hole in a wooden pillar said to be the same size. Successful attempts at which are believed to bring health, happiness and enlightenment to you in your next life. On our own quest for happiness, however, we set our sights on the nightlife capital of Japan, Osaka. As it was already evening, our first stop was to check out the city. And what better way to check out the city than from 175 metres above it, right at the top of Umeda Sky Building. This gives some of the most spectacular city views in the country and gives you a chance to enjoy one of the more interesting escalator rides of your life. Back down at ground level, it was time for me to embrace the accommodation I have been dreading, the Capsule Hotel. Whilst the idea of sleeping in a space only slightly larger than the Buddha's nostrils was certainly tempting, I opted for one of the more spacious cabins that still had all the positives of limited privacy and zero soundproofing in a more accessible form factor. Therefore, I had to rely on Matthew for a showing on a slightly more condensed version of MTV Cribs. Thankfully, we spent just one night at this particular hotel, and the next morning it was time to have the evil spirits of the previous night purged and swallowed and be blessed with good luck for the remaining part of the trip at the Namba Yasaka Shrine, famous for standing out with its unique lion head design. Whilst Osaka might be the kitchen of Japan, I'm led to believe that the kitchen of Osaka in fact lies within the Cinnamoroll Cafe, a food establishment so refined that we needed a reservation to get in. There's certainly very few places with the gusto to be able to serve up a sky blue curry, and there's even fewer people that would opt to order it at 11 AM. Blue curry now vanquished, our next stop were the grounds of Osaka Castle, one of the city's most prominent landmarks. Built in 1583 by a powerful warlord, the castle has been witness to a number of battles and struggles throughout the 1600s and beyond. Today you can enjoy a walk around the castle grounds without too much fear of conflict, and it's a really enjoyable place to spend an afternoon with a lively atmosphere set against a stunning backdrop. If you're interested in the history of the castle, the museum inside is open from 9 until 5 and only costs 600 yen to enter. Or you can do what we did and spend your time wandering around the castle grounds helping a stranger find their lost phone. Back in the city centre, you'll find that Osaka really comes alive at night, and what better place to experience that than the streets of Dotonbori.
To finish off the night, we headed to Round 1, a 24-hour, 7-floor recreational facility centered around arcade games and sports. If you enjoy this kind of thing, Round 1 is a must visit, where you can experience everything from mechanical bull riding to indoor batting cages. Everything you do and play here is included in the entry fee that honestly cost us around £13 for 4 hours. This was one of the most fun nights we had in Japan, and I can't rate it highly enough. Oh, and they have karaoke too. After a night of fun games and terrible singing, we took our final day in Osaka much slower, with a visit to one of the world's largest aquariums to live out all my Animal Crossing museum fantasies and enjoy the peaceful nature of the world's largest fish. Our final night was spent in the quirky area of Shinsekai, a nostalgic neighbourhood originally built to envision what the new world would look like, but neglected in the years that followed, leading to an area lost to decades gone by. Streets lined with low-cost eateries and retro neon signs, but still thriving with locals and tourists alike. Shinsekai also gave us the opportunity to try an Osaka classic, the okonomiyaki, a thick, savoury pancake made with cabbage and noodles, an inexpensive but tasty dish that gave a fitting way to round out our trip to the kitchen of Japan. By day 12, we were making our final Shinkansen journey with our sights set on Tokyo. It was time to properly explore the west side of the city, and in particular the areas of Shinjuku and Shibuya. And how better to explore the streets than in a go-kart? The street karting in Tokyo sometimes gets mixed reviews online, but I can honestly say that both the tours we went on were led very responsibly and were always met with smiles and waves from both pedestrians and other road users. As a tourist, it's of course your responsibility to respect the local culture and rules when staying in a foreign country, regardless of the activity you're doing. And to be honest, this was a super fun way to see different parts of the city. From the roads of Tokyo to the towers that line them, Shibuya Scramble Crossing is definitely better viewed from above, and even on a Sunday evening you get a picture of how busy it might be at peak hours. Shibuya itself is of course home to a plethora of shops and restaurants, so it's really take your pick on how you spend your time here. For us, we were lucky enough to be in Japan for the Tori no Ichi Festival, an annual celebration held at shrines and temples across Japan on dates in the lunar calendar designated as Days of the Rooster, where people wish for good fortune and business prosperity for the coming year. By the next day, it was time for an exciting visit to see some steps. If you've ever watched the anime Your Name, when I mention the stairs from the movie, you'll know exactly what you're looking at. If you've never seen the anime, then you should definitely watch it, but until then, this place means absolutely nothing to you. But again, you should definitely watch it. Now coming to the tail end of the trip, it's a great time to buy any additional items you haven't already purchased. And then another suitcase when you realise those additional items don't fit in your luggage. But if you're lost for something to do, the Team Lab's Borderless Museum is a fantastic way to spend a number of hours. If I'm honest, this was something initially I was really hesitant about going to, given the limited time we had and the number of things on offer in Tokyo, as I've never really been one for traditional artwork or museums. But I have to say that I was blown away by how well it's been done. Initially just expecting strange projections on a screen, you'll quickly get lost in what feels like an entirely different world, and a place that I thought would be a quick 30-minute walk through ended up taking a number of hours to explore thoroughly. In fact, by the time we were finished,
Night had fallen outside, making it the perfect time to hit up Shinjuku and enjoy many of the sights and streets people think of when they picture Tokyo.
We couldn't hold back the sunrise forever, and morning came and it was met with the bittersweet feeling of knowing this was our final day in Japan. A painful realization that we had no time to dwell on because we were heading to Ikebukuro, Sunshine City. Our first stop was in the Pikachu Sweets Cafe, a cute takeaway coffee place selling drinks and small snacks which requires no booking, a fantastic alternative to the standard Pokemon Cafe if you're unable to get a reservation, and an excellent supplement to it if you've been addicted to Pokemon since you were 3. What we were really here for though was the largest gachapon store in the world, with rows and rows and rows of machines, each one an opportunity to lose money on a small plastic item that served no real purpose whatsoever. And that, my friends, is the beauty of it all. The advantage of leaving this till the last day is you can, without guilt, burn through all those coins you've been acquiring the rest of the trip. In the evening, it was back to Shibuya to look out across Tokyo one last time. Although very cliche now with all the social media videos showcasing it, the view here really is special, although I wouldn't recommend doing it just before leaving, as it makes it all the more difficult to say goodbye. And then, that was it. It was off to the airport the next morning, accompanied by weather that really screamed, "Get ready for Britain again." I really hope that this video has been useful to you and has maybe helped you planning your trip to Japan, or in the very least given you a taste of what to expect if you too spend 2 weeks in one of my favourite countries in the world. I want to finish the video by giving a massive shout out to the Abroad in Japan channel, whose video we used to help plan much of the cities and stops themselves, but took the time to choose our own activities and places within them. If you have any questions about the trip, please put them in the comments below and I'll be more than happy to help. Thanks for watching.